Hello, I'm Michael Verney and welcome along to the Indo GAA Podcast with thanks to AIB. AIB is at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. With this year's championship shaping up to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB is more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Hello and welcome to the Indo GAA Football Show. Delighted to be joined this week by Dick Clerkin as normal, and we have a special guest here with us, former Donegal All-Star Kevin Cassidy. Kevin, how are you doing?
Good, guys. How are you?
Good. We're having some little technological issues, but we're alright. The main thing is that we have you there. Would I be fair to say that yourself and Dick would have had a few clashes on the pitch, maybe on and off the pitch down through the years?
One or two technical difficulties there as well.
They were all resolved though, Kevin, weren't they?
They were, yeah.
Fairness.
You surely got into a few scrapes off the pitch as well at different stages, did you?
With a few jars here and there.
We did, yeah. We would have both enjoyed the social aspect. You could back then, to be fair to say, Kevin. Like, it's completely different now. You wouldn't get away with the half of it. But yeah, be it on the pitch or afterwards, like, Jesus, Kevin, should we played against each other at schools, college, minor, under 20, senior, and yeah, it probably broke out sort of even enough, you know, over the course of the years.
Definitely. It's funny the way it goes. I'm sure the same now, but once you say that once you kick off and you clash at that kind of level, if both go on to play for your county and different things, you're nearly your careers nearly mirrored themselves all the way through. And there was some big clashes. You probably got the better of us more than we did you, but anyway.
I used to always fancy playing, Kevin, on a Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon as the thing from a Saturday night. You generally find you had a better chance for whatever reason that was.
Am I right in saying you boys tugged out together a Railway Cup before as well?
We did, yeah. What was that? 2006 or 07. It was in Crow Park.
A couple of years, Kevin, wasn't it? Remember Brian had the team for 3 or 4 years, and he had half of Donegal on it, and Brian was always good to me, and we won. Do you remember we played, Kevin? It was actually great. It was one of the last probably good provincial interprovincials in Crow Park. We played Leinster, and it was a great team. We played with Sean Kavanagh, Paddy Bradley, yourself. I was privileged to be part of it. But anyway, we won. It was a great game against Munster, and a few of the O'Sheas were up. I remember Darragh O'Shea laid me out in front of the Cusack stand that night.
Wouldn't be like him.
Remember that I popped up and there wasn't a sinner in that corner of the stadium. Nobody's in it. No lines, no nothing. Darragh was way back up the field, and I was looking around after me. I think I nudged to you, Kevin. I said, "Did you see that?"
Yeah.
I said, "Nobody's seen it." And anyway, we won the game. Great game, and we had a great night out that night. Coppers, all the works, and I never forget. I still tell people this now, Kevin. We woke up the next morning, no sign of the Donegal boys for breakfast, and Brian was like, Brian knew what had happened. I said, "Oh, sorry, Brian." Anyway, word got out that the boys weren't done with Coppers and had headed for the airport for it was the nearest early house to Magnificence Hotel in the Skylon. So I never seen you after that, Kevin. I don't know where you ended up. Good times, different times, needless to say.
There's a fairness to you, Kevin. There's no shortage of creativity there anyway. Where there's a will, there's a way.
You always have to have a backup plan. That's my theory. On and off the pitch.
Good man. It was a funny kind of weekend, lads. Semi-final action. I think we were expecting two kind of, you know, real good games that would go right down to the wire. Maybe not so in the Meath game as much, but Kerry kind of kept Tyrone at arm's length, Kevin. We just start on that game, and there's only kind of the starting point really is like, have you seen the likes of Clifford before? Like, have you seen any? Like, it's amazing. He put the questions he poses for opposition defences. He was unbelievable the other day.
No, listen, I think we're really blessed that we've got the opportunity to see this guy. Obviously, I've seen him live myself a good few times, covering games, and I remember the final against Galway 2 or 3 years ago, taking my young son to that game, and just to be there. Listen, the things that. Listen, I know it's hard to compare. Like if you're Peter Cannonans, your Conor McManuses, your Gooches, you know, it's very hard to single one man out and say that he's better than the rest of those guys, because they were standout players as well, but. This boy just does it. He's been doing it since school level, minors, 21s, seniors, and he's still got his whole career ahead of him. It's just absolutely phenomenal to watch.
Just on that, Dick, I think the biggest compliment you could pay to Clifford is, and I saw someone reference Tiger Woods online the other day. It's just like he had all the expectation, all the pressure, and he has delivered tenfold. Like, it's actually amazing to think, when you think of everything that was on his back, and even the first season, I remember against yourselves up in Clonus, and he gets that goal to draw, and like talk about living up to the expectations, like day in, day out, year in, year out.
He is, and I know sometimes in the GAA and other sports probably look at us and think a wee bit too much of ourselves, but I think we're on solid enough ground to say, aside from probably Rory McIlroy, who I'm going up to watch now in Portrush, there's no other sports person on the island that attracts and puts bums on seats and has that sense of aura and fascination about him. Like, the crowds are coming to watch him. He is filling stadiums. He is bringing kids to watch, and he is bigger than the game almost. And as you say, that's all about expectation. You're going to see what's he going to do, and you're watching him. And time again, he delivers, and that's why people keep coming back. And that's why there was such. I went down. I took the boys down on Saturday night, and like the crowd, the atmosphere, the build up. It was the same last year. Now, and this is why I think this year is so special for him. Like I went down to the Armagh game, and it was the exact same sort of vibe, a huge away Ulster support. They smelt blood in the water, and there was something off with Kerry and Clifford that night. He just didn't have the same level of energy, couldn't get space, but wasn't equally making that little bit of a harder run. The runs that we seen him make on Saturday night to just get that bit of separation, which you have to work bloody hard at that level because you're marking good defenders. Just didn't have it last year, whatever was up. But I watched every movement of him on Saturday night. When I go to watch the games, I watch him. I sort of have an idea what's happening in the other sides of the pitch, but you're watching his movement, you're watching his position.
Fascinating just to focus on one fella.
It is. And it's almost like if you watch Messi now, or maybe less so, that he actually spends most of his time static, standing, walking. You know, he's not wasting energy running around, sort of trying to chase balls and sort of be busy for the sake of being busy. He knows where he needs to be. His teammates knows where he's going, and it's almost a set play around him. That sort of Clifford cut, you could nearly call it now at this stage. He sort of positioned himself either side of the arc, and that's why he's so dangerous. 2 feet, he can attack from either side. And he's equally, like, he scored his couple of 2-pointers on his good foot, and then he scored the goal on his right foot. So he can come from either side, which makes it a nightmare for defenders and teams. But it is like it's ridiculous. Like, what's he up on now? 853 for this year. Jesus, forwards didn't score that in a career, and he scored that in one season, and he's still not done. And it's the fact that he's delivering on that expectation and that pressure at such a high, consistent level. Like, I've never seen a season like it, and there probably hasn't been, even in new money with the score and the 2-pointers. I'd say if you look back, there's nobody compares to that, and not done yet. Yeah, he's another hurdle to go, but to do it, like, National League, Munster title, came through 2 tough games, Armagh, Tyrone, and another one to go, and he's carrying that team on his shoulder with aplomb, And it's just as Kevin says, privileged to watch. We're sort of running out of superlatives at this stage, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't keep coming.
Kevin, do you know what I think? Sorry, guys. Do you know what I think it is this year with him? If you look at him, a lot of people are referencing how pumped up he is and how he's getting the crowd going. I think it's personal for David Clifford this year, because if you think back to the couple of seasons where he didn't deliver, like, there might have been 3, 4, 5 men around this guy, you know, and we're saying, David Clifford didn't play well. I think he's saying to himself now, right, lads, you'll see what I'm capable of now, because you can only, 2 is the very max that you can put on me. And I think he's out to show people, listen, this is how good I am. Systems might have snuffed me out in the past in certain games, but he's have no excuse now, and I think he's made it personal this year.
And isn't it great that the rules, like, you were obviously a defender, Kevin, Dick, you were a midfielder, but games should be accentuating forward play. Like, it should be making it an attacking game. And, like, the amount of unbelievably, like, champagne attacking displays that we're seeing now, and it's no coincidence that this is probably, and it's a fair statement given what's came before, this is probably David Clifford's finest season so far and the best football he's ever played. It's probably no coincidence, realistically.
Yeah, there's a wee bit too, and I think as the years progress with the new rules, there's a bit of catch up now for defenders. Like, defenders have got away in the smoke. There's a lot of defenders that were manufactured defenders. They were a forward that couldn't score because of the way the game had gone. Were brought back, and they were getting all-stars and all these accolades from their forward play, but they didn't have to defend. They didn't have to defend in the traditional sense in terms of mark your man, mind his good foot, keep them scoreless. And you're seeing defenders getting a wee bit exposed now because they probably got away with it for the last 5 or 6 years, not having to do that traditional tight man-to-man defending. And I'd say you're going to see defending improving because they have to. Like, it'll be a skill now for defending. And even what like Pádraig Cassidy has been one of the best defenders in Ulster over the last 7 or 8 years. No question about it. Like, he has snuffed out more good men. I watched him, and from the first minute, he was touch tight. He was as tight as you could be to Clifford. Nearly he was too tight. He was going back to mark him again. It was a case of, no, I need to be, because he got too close to him for the goal, because Clifford's too strong. He was able to throw him off. You almost need to try and mark his good foot. If you do nothing else, and I'd say Jim McGuinness will be looking at this, and says, right, what's the way to defend him? I says, mark him a yard or two off his good foot. If he's going to score 8 points, let him try to do it off his right foot. And don't get anything behind for goals, because if you try to mark him too close on his left side, it is close to unmarkable that we've seen. So I think you're going to see defenders. It'll be fascinating now to see how Donegal and McGuinness come up with a plan for him in the final, because defenders haven't really figured out in the new rules how to mark a player like him, and others that are having good days out in an attacking sense. But yeah,
Kevin, from a Tyrone point of view, like, obviously a really good opening quarter. They were even in the game. It was 1-11 to 13 or whatever, and then all of a sudden kind of Kerry put on a bit of a push. Tyrone have been hit and miss this year. I kind of thought that they would maybe catch fire maybe after the Dublin game, but it was kind of more of the same, really. They never really caught fire at different stages. I think in the last 10 minutes against yourselves maybe, but they never really caught fire the other night, having been in the game for, a decent spell of it.
No, definitely. You hit the nail on the head there. I think it's been a mixed bag for Tyrone, to be honest. And that's going from the very start of the National League. You maybe had a good performance, a bad performance, good performance, bad performance. Against us in Ballybofey, I was at that game. They looked good, but when I go back over the game again, I think Donegal just weren't great on the day. We were expecting then Tyrone to really kick on. They go out then and put a couple of lacklustre displays together. Against Kerry the last day, they just didn't look on it, to be honest. I know they held their own for the first part of the game, but once Kerry's intensity and their drive got going, when you see the likes of McCurry coming off the pitch, it's just an off day for Tyrone. And I don't know, listen, they were very good few underage teams coming, but I was talking to a couple of Tyrone guys the last couple of days. They're all similar in stature. Like the Canavans, the McCurrys, the Mattelholmes. There's no real mix there. I think personally, a man who, I don't know the ins and outs, but Cathal McShane stepped away. To have someone like that in the mix that he can maybe change things up. Obviously Malachi's new in there. He's going to have to unearth a few lads this winter.
It's funny because you can't just, some people, when you're picking, say, your best 15, and you pick, I do it in hurling the whole time, and you pick 6 lovely dandy forwards, and that's not realistic. Like, you need a 6'4", maybe somewhere in the half line or maybe in the full forward line. You need maybe a 6'2", kind of a dog on the wing. It's funny, you need different types of players. Too many of the same kind of shoot the lights out forwards will not really win any games for you, really.
Yeah, and when you look at when they won the All-Ireland, sort of came from sort of not from nowhere, but not to be unfair to them, they had McShane. He was off the boil a wee bit, but he was still coming off the bench. But that Conor McKenna was a different type of player. Strong, smart on the ball. Could get us a few scores, but he creates scores. So added just a little bit of a different dynamic into that forward line. Matty Donnelly in his prime, he was you could just see maybe the age got to Matty on a tough, hot day, because he was that type of player, just big, strong, ball winner, carrier, scorer, provider. They need to find a few players like that, and I would definitely agree with Kevin in terms of they looked too samey at times and didn't look to see they had a really obvious attacking plan or strategy strategy by comparison to Kerry. When I was watching them, it was almost a case of just all this sort of dinky running. But in fairness, the Kerry defenders were excellent in terms of not diving in. No, and I've got you for pace here. You can do all the dinking you want, but you're not going to burn me. I'm just going to mark your right. They were marking McCurry's left foot very well. There was a few times you see McCurry trying to step in and show the wee dink that he was doing all year. Wasn't getting away with it on Saturday. It was really good, smart, intelligent defending on the Kerrys because Tyrone didn't bring anything different to make them think otherwise. And I'd say Tyrone will be like, there's a huge Tyrone crowd. And like when I seen the Tyrone crowd coming down, I say, right, these boys smell blood in the water. They don't travel unless they think they're going to win. And it wasn't a good performance. There's no point in saying, like Tyrone, we'll talk about Meath in a minute and we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Tyrone should have been performing better. Like they had enough ball. They actually not dominated. They won the majority of kickouts. There was a spell in the second half that the momentum was with them. Con Kilpatrick was dominating around the middle and they made really, really bad work of a feud. And like that's... Malachy, and I said this to you last week, like Malachy doesn't have a good record in Croke Park with Monaghan, and that's carried on now in terms of the big games when it matters, and he'd be disappointed, and the Tyrone people will be disappointed with that performance because there was an opportunity there. They weren't as bad or as far off as Kerry as the final results will show when it was their own downfall.
Just a quick word, Dick, on Joe O'Connor. He has turned into an absolute powerhouse. Like, especially when most needed, with Dermot O'Connor out and maybe Jack Barry not around, with other options not there. Like he's right in the top tier now based on current form.
Stop. It was funny when he ran out on the pitch, when the players came out on the pitch, all you could see was these luminous orange boots. And I was saying to the boys, I says, right, you come to Croke Park in this get-up, you need to deliver. And actually, the Tyrone were struggling, or Kerry were struggling in the early parts. They were struggling around midfield. And I says, Joe, I hope you haven't got carried away with yourself in the orange boots. And then he just took over for that period of the game and deserved. Well, a lot of debate about man of the match, but he was very close behind Clifford in terms of the most influential player on the pitch. And if nothing else, the summer camps and the cool camps for the rest of the summer, the kids will be running out in bloody luminous boots. So I hope he's got some branding or patent rights on those. But but add something different, in terms of that. Like he's a rugby background, you can see it. He's got that power. You talk about the physical attributes you need now for Gaelic football. That's one of them. Sort of speed, endurance, and power. He breaking tackles and then not afraid to go for goal and take a shot. Like you see a few players, breaking through now and they're almost hesitant. He's not afraid to. You remember that goal he scored, still goal of the season against Cork. We forget about that. It feels like that long ago, but those few points he scored in the second half, really, because Tyrone were, I wouldn't say dominating, but they had pulled it back. I think there was a point in it. Remember Derek Canavan, where went a bit of a run. They were winning kickouts, and that sort of wee 5-minute spell from O'Connor really sort of settled Kerry, and they sort of kicked on from that. But yes, he's been exceptional, and he's the all-star in the bag. He'll not get Footballer of the Year, despite what other people say. There's only one show in town for that, but he's been a real find, and probably the most improved player in the country, bar none, because that was an area of concern for Kerry, and he's sort of made it his own.
Kevin, just a quick one. It's not something that's often spoken about as regards Kerry, because we always talk about, their footballing abilities. But to me, they look extremely well conditioned. Now, I'm just thinking, there's lads hopping off the ground. I'm thinking of Brian O'Bugliak. I'm thinking of Jason Foley. Thinking of Gavin White. Like, I think that, like, it's not something that's talking about because, they do all the nice kick pass and all that. But they are supremely well conditioned, and they're coming up against another supremely well conditioned team in the final.
Yeah, listen, you have to give Jack O'Connor great credit, although there's a few Kerry boys who don't want to do that. But yeah, you have to, because listen, if you think back to any time Jack comes into the Kerry job, listen, he gets these lads focused and primed. We know, listen, without being disrespectful to the Munster Championship, we know that they can sort of prime themselves and time their run. Meath caught them, obviously, to top the table, but I think that actually worked out in their favour because the extra game did them no harm. And now these guys are ready. Like, Joe Connor was immense, David Clifford was immense, but I thought Gavin White was brilliant at the weekend. Just the way he was thundering into breaking ball and just constantly going at the opposition. Mike Breen, Bruno Begley, Jason Foley as well has been brilliant for them. So listen, they're in a really, really good spot. I'm not privy to who's their S&C or who's looking after that, but they're definitely in good condition. But that always also, I suppose, if you're winning games, you always look strong and fit. That's the thing. But they're going to come up against a team now who are equally as well conditioned. So we'll see what happens then.
It's interesting as well. Cian O'Neill obviously left Galway to go to Kerry again. I know he's based in Cork. Lads, when you go down through his CV, outside of, he had a tough time largely when he was Kildare manager, but his record is ridiculous. It's an All-Ireland with Tipperary in 2010 as an S&C coach. He was involved in Mayo when they got to the 12 final. He was involved with Kerry when they won in 14. He was involved for 3 Connacht titles, I think, with Galway. They obviously knocked out Mayo when he was Kildare manager in that famous Newbridge or Nowhere game as well. He was Kerry coach or Cork coach when they knocked out Kerry in COVID as well. Like, his record is outstanding, and I don't think it's any coincidence, despite what some former Kerry footballers will try to tell you as well. They're funny boys down there about certain things, especially outside people coming in. But that's going to be
thing as well. Yeah. Like I'd say, with all the stats and GPS trackers, it'd be interesting to see a real assessment of Kerry. I'd say they're far more efficient with the ball than other teams in terms of the amount of energy and distance they travel to get their scores. Now that's just a gut sense watching it. They kick the ball a wee bit more, which means you have less running, less energy, so it allows you to stay fresher. Because at the end of the day, like in terms of endurance and fitness, like if you're running really hard all day, you'll eventually get tired. So I think even watching Clifford, like, it'd almost be a bit nervous watching him in the first quarter, 15-20, because he's doing so little running at times, and sometimes it feels that, Jesus, get going here. You need to go. He's always probably playing the long game, knowing, well, if I'm burning myself out here, I'll be done with the last 10, 15 minutes to go. The game is 70, and with the stop clock, it's an 80-minute game now. So it's trying to be efficient now with your energy. And I think Kerry are probably that wee bit more than other teams. So it's leaving them, when they need to run, they can run hard and they can run fast, because they're not wasting a lot of energy, maybe herring up the pitch or sort of being over elaborate with the ball up front. So it'd be interesting to see if there was a bit of hard assessment on that. By comparison, we'll come to Donegal in a minute. It's all about hard running. But they have the fitness, endurance to do that, because you need to, if you're going to play that approach. Yeah,
we'll come to Donegal now. We'll hop over to you, Kevin. Like, that was pretty clinical. They had the job done by the 50-minute mark. Really, when the first goal goes in, you're kind of thinking, this is job done. They were able to take Murphy off with 25 minutes to go. They got Ryan McHugh off kind of early enough. It was like, it's gas how even in All-Ireland semi-final there's such clear levels between some of the top teams. But this was... Donegal have started they were putting together halves of football, and now they're getting closer to the full 75, 80 minutes, and that wasn't far off it the other day.
Yeah, I suppose going into that game, lads, we were in probably a dangerous position, because everybody was already talking about the final and how Donegal are going to get there. So you can be sure that Jim's message was, listen, boys, let's go out here and just let's always take care of our own business, forget what Meath's going to bring. Everybody was saying Meath are going to throw the kitchen sink. They've nothing to lose. So Jim's message all week would be, listen, do our job to the best that we can do and we'll be okay. Meath started off okay, but they played into our hands, because the way we were set up just outside the arc, like the shots that Meath took on were crazy at this level. If they fly over the bar and you have one of those days that everything you hit goes over, then well and good. But listen, Jim plays the percentages, and he would have known, and he would have spoken to the boys and told them that these lads are going to shoot, and that's fine, and we'll just sap up the energy. At half time, I knew the game was done anyway, and he spoke about levels there. There was a clear mismatch in terms of where they were physically, tactically, and their skill levels as well.
Just on that, Kevin, like, they were more than happy for me to take those shots, and I don't think it's been spoken about enough. 2-pointers are unbelievable when they go over. Jesus, lads, when they go wide, it's just like sucks all the oxygen out of support, out of the team, and it was just one after another. And some of them, I think there was definitely maybe 2 that were short as well, and it's just like, it just sucks everything out of a team, doesn't it?
It does. And if you watch the Monaghan game, and Jim even spoke about it afterwards, like they knew how dangerous Monaghan were from their 2-pointers, and they kind of pushed their defence out a little to cut that off and take that avenue away from them. They did the same to me. They played just outside the arc, and they more or less said, "That's fine. If you think you can stick it over from 45, carry on." And maybe on another day, the Meath lads could have done that, and that's what got them this far. And credit to them, they stuck to their principles. But listen, when you get to this level, you can't afford to hand the ball back to teams like Donegal, because once we have the ball in possession, it's nearly always going to end up with a shot getting off. So Meath kind of killed himself in that sense.
Dick, I'll just throw this to you actually, because there's a lot of commentary online. Michael Murphy seems to be like a thing online for a lot of people now. Is Murphy refereed differently than other players? Is Murphy refereeing games also as well?
Well, he always did. But I've no issue with that.
You were pretty good at refereeing yourself.
Well, I always have your go. Yeah, but yeah, that's part of it. Like, that's part of his quality. That's part of his quality as a leader. Like, this idea that he's this big, friendly, gentle day, and he is off the field, absolute gentleman. On the pitch, mate, he's a ruthless animal. He is, and you'll get, if he gets an opportunity, you're getting it. I'll never forget, I don't know you had it. I am just a wee bit off tangent. We played Donegal in an Ulster semi-final in Kingspan in Breffni Park, and to this day, it was the biggest and hardest hit I ever seen when Drew Riley and Murphy hit each other in the middle of the pitch. You nearly felt fucking stadium shake. And I've ran into Michael a few times, and it's not a good experience if you're not ready for it. And he knows it. He has the strength, and he does play on the edge, and at times he has gone over the edge. But the best players, especially when you're physical and you're seen as the sort of the point of the sword, you have to bring that. And he does. And yes, there's sometimes he has got away with it. He's gone in with the sort of the loose hand, and it's a strong loose hand. And should he have been black-carded? Should he have been black-carded the other day? Probably not. I'd say it's borderline. But listen, as Roy Keane sort of said, if you do get the card someday, you give the opportunity for the ref to do it. So I think he's got away a couple of times this year. There was a few worse ones now. I think it was either a league game, I can't remember. He caught somebody. It was up in the Derry in the first round of the Ulster Championship. He caught one of the Derry lads very, very low and late with a strong arm, and it was a red card offence, and he got away with it. But he does, and he's always done that in his career, and Kevin will know that, and I experienced it. So what? That's it. You got to bring it. You got to play to the edge, and Kerry will have to have somebody of his ilk, because he'll do the same again. Because that's what he brings to the table, and it's one of the reasons that Donegal are the team that they are when Michael Murphy's on board. This is a tangent now of all tangents, but I shared a field with the great Brian Whelan, and I've never seen anybody he refereed games in Offaly and outside for 10 years. 100% he did. Yeah. He was on the team in the Millennium. There was an aura about him. I was lucky enough to share a field with Henry Shefflin at different stages as well, and again, refereed games and got decisions. I'll go to you, Kevin. Any teams you played against where you were like, this lad is nearly calling the shots here, he's nearly making the referee's mind for him, and do you try and get inside, have you ever tried to get inside the referee's head then as well, and try to not con them, but try and make them aware of what's going on?
I think that it happens with all, if you look at all successful teams, I'm thinking of the Tyrone teams and the Armagh teams when we were growing up. The likes of Jim McGuinness and those kind of lads would definitely try and influence and get decisions that were perhaps 50-50. Your Mickey Hart's teams, I think that's one thing that we do. Just thinking back to when McGuinness came in first in 11, we would send these narratives out there in the media, like what's happening now with Michael. And we would definitely highlight these sort of things that maybe Tyrone were getting away with, or Armagh were getting away with, and you'd hope that, on the big day then, that if there was a call to be made, that if there was not a noise made around certain things, that it would play in the referee's mind. I have no doubt that's what's happening now from maybe a Kerry point of view. They're trying to highlight this, and listen, I just hope that it doesn't come down to that on the final day, that we're caught with a decision on Michael because of all this or whatever. But just to touch on what Dick referenced there, he plays on the edge, but if he doesn't, I've played with players who were abundance of skill, really talented individuals, but when it came to the crunch, they just didn't have that steel in them. You need that steel. Like he's Donegal's leader. He's Donegal's go-to man. So if he's not going to set the template, then who is? Listen, we all have flown into tackles and been a little bit late, but I'd rather a man that flies in and is a little late than a man who doesn't go in at all.
Yeah, Dick, I'll fire that back to you. Any lads that frustrated you to play against that you felt almost like were dictating affairs?
How long do we have? You have to remember we played in the year that you could talk to referees, and you got away with a lot, and it was just part of the course. And Kevin said, yes, I was probably hard to listen to, if I'm being honest. So I gave as good as I got. Generally you'd be told to shut up, in fairness, but but all those teams like Dooher, Paul Galvin, all of them would have been Dooher especially was very vocal on the pitch. He would have been very vocal. But again, an imperious leader for Tyrone. And I think you can read a wee bit too much into it. It does balance out, Kerry boys. Like I remember, so if you want an example to counter what maybe the Kerry boys are saying about Donegal, if you remember the very first minute of the 2009 All-Ireland final, Tig Kennelly
Nicholas
took
Murphy.
the head clean off Nicholas Murphy with a high elbow. Straight red card every day. And that was setting the tone because Cork were sort of clipping and at Kerry's heels and fancied themselves, and that's no different than what Michael Murphy does. And he got away with it, and they went on and won the All-Ireland, and he'd done his jig in the Hogan stand. So if any of the Kerry boys are piping up over the next couple of weeks, you can remind them about that one, Mike.
Yeah, 100%. Just, Kevin, I briefly chat to you about Brendan McCall's performance the other day. And listen, his performances all year and even for the last couple of years. Jordan Morris, I think, got 4 shots away the other day. 4 shots that were nearly all under pressure. Three of them wide, I think, and 1 over the bar. Is McCall the most likely to be detailed on Clifford? And do you see that as a 1-man job? Is it a 2-man job? Is it a 3-man job? And McGuinness will surely have something in his back pocket for him.
Yeah, we're bringing Neil McGee back for the final. So
he's in a close enough proximity. He's not
the last rodeo.
Jesus.
No, McCall will get the job. He's done it before in Clifford. The way Donegal work, if you watch, it's McCall's one of the few guys who are allowed to stray from the system in terms of where they are zonally. He'll just completely go with Clifford wherever Clifford's going, and he'll have his back to the ball, he'll have his back to the play. He doesn't care about shape or structure. It's basically shut this man down. Now, saying it and doing it are 2 different things. I was down at the Galway League game and what do you call it? Salt Hill there. Yeah. He got the job on Shane Walsh, and in the first half he kind of marked him but fell into the shape and let Walsh kind of outside the 45. Now Walsh hit 3 2-pointers in a row, and McGuinness roared across, and from that minute he didn't leave his side. He actually did okay in him. He closed him down slightly in that game, so I expect that to happen this time around. In terms of will we double up or we treble up, it won't be that. It'll be a case of Donegal, whatever side the play is on, the opposite side claps. I think everybody knows that, and that's it. Just we always try and get the +1 somewhere. The difference with doing it against the likes of a Meath as opposed to Kerry is that the likes of your Shawnee O'Shea's, your Paddy Cliffords, I even put the Guineas in that bracket, they can also hurt you. So it's going to be very detailed in terms of how far they try and drop off the double up, because Kerry are so dangerous from anywhere in the pit. So that's the biggest thing that Jim has with this.
Just on that, Dick, would you be happy enough for somebody else to beat you and not Clifford? As in, if there's going to be 2-point opportunities. I think, by all accounts, I don't have the stats in front of me, but Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea have the vast majority of Kerry 2-pointers. So would you be happy enough to maybe not double mark them, but really kind of squeeze them and let somebody else have the shot more so than not?
I don't think so, because Kerry, this is where Kerry get to Croke Park. They sort of come into their own. Not always, but more often than not, they're all very good footballers. They get inside the shooting arc. Brian Og, Joe Connor, Shawnee O'Shea, Killian Spillane, all these boys will comfortably chip over a point. So if you give them a free kick, because they're technically good, they're confident, and when the shot's on, unlike a lot of other teams and forwards, they're sort of a wee bit hesitant and maybe looking for the shooter, they'll just chip it over the bar. job done, back out again, get the next ball. So if you're going to give a Kerry player a free rein, you'll probably get penalised. And the other thing as well, and I've noticed, because of the way Clifford plays, he will stand and wait and watch. And if somebody breaks the line, watch him go then, because he can just sort of, he only needs a half a yard. He needs far less space of separation to be dangerous. So if that +1, even if there's two men, when you're that close to goal, you've no margin for error. Like he'll be sort of waiting to peel off that free man coming through. And if you watch the game back, there was a number of chances. Like Clifford could have had another couple of goals. Like on another day, he was through, and because he's always, they're the opportunities that he's looking for. He just needs that sort of half burst, 10-yard pace coming off somebody's shoulder, and he's through on goal. So I think Donegal won't go down that route, because as Kevin says, they have their own game plan. They'll sort of allow for half a dozen points of Clifford, minimise the rest of them. If you look at the scores, but that's the one weakness now for Kerry. And I know maybe you didn't want to talk too much about the final, but just looking back at Kerry to date, a high percentage of their scores are coming from Clifford and Seanie O'Shea. Tyrone done a good job on minimising O'Shea. They weren't able to do it on Clifford. So it's a 20-point game now. You almost have to be sort of methodical about it, right? It's a 20-point game now. So you can win a game by conceding 20 points. Donegal just need to be scoring 21 or 2. So even giving Clifford 7 or 8 points, limit the rest of them. But it's more a case of making sure that you're not giving cheap possession in around that arc, that area, which in fairness, Donegal superb. But you watch the difference of Donegal by comparison to other teams, as Kevin said, they tackle with intent on the kick-up. They're not like a lot of teams that they sort of step off and Asher, I'm defending, I'm between the man and the goal here, and I'm defending here. No, you're only kidding yourself. They actually go out, and the perfect example of that was it was for the second Donegal goal of the weekend. Remember Finbar Rorty?
Yeah, he
pushed out. I think it was young Costello. I can't remember who it was, but his opponent went to take a sort of speculative shot, and next thing he sniffed it. He said, "Right, this man's ready to be tackled," and he tackled him.
And it went the whole way to the other end of the pitch,
and they broke.
Yeah,
you go to most other teams, they're not tackling there. They're standing off. They're, as I say to the young lads, under 12s, you're like, you're not herding sheep here. You got to tackle. No point in passing them off to left or right. Whereas Donegal tackle, and that's why, going back to the Meath game, so many of them Meath shots went off because there was a Donegal man breathing down his neck. They weren't getting a free shot that they might have gotten in other games, and that's what Donegal do better than most. They tackle with intent in the right areas.
Kevin, just on Donegal's scoring rate, like, I know it was obviously big the other day, but even against Monaghan, like, it was 126, massive score put up against Louth as well. Like, from the first iteration of McGuinness, this maybe wouldn't have been what you expected, but like, he has definitely maximised the new rules. Like, Donegal are a free scoring side who have a solid defensive structure, but when they get moving from the 45 out, like, they're invariably scoring. They're putting up massive tallies.
I think that's the biggest challenge that Jack O'Connell will face, in terms of, like, we're sitting here and the whole of the county's talking about how we're going to close David Clifford down and Seanie O'Shea down and Paddy Clifford, right? So that's, I suppose, 3 lads who are identified. If you're looking at Donegal point of view, obviously Michael Murphy pops up, Arson Gallen, Kieran Moore, Paddy Morgan, Ryan McHugh, Kieran Thompson,
Conor O'Donnell, Shane O'Donnell.
Like, the list is endless in terms of who actually scores. So, what do Kerry do there? Obviously, the key for them is not to give Donegal the ball, because once Donegal get the ball, like I explained earlier, they don't go individually. Like, there's at least 4 players flying up the pitch, so that ends up in a shot getting off most of the time. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, for Jack O'Connor, if he's sitting down to come up with a game plan of how to curtail, I suppose, Donegal's scoring prowess.
And just on what McGuinness brings to the table, like, even what was the mood like in Donegal, even when it was announced that he was coming back? Like, there's almost like hope, like, just soaring through people's veins again, almost.
It's like, if you remember back to, things weren't actually that good in the county, because if you're going from, just say the setup McGuinness had an 11, 12, 13, 14, all the younger lads are hearing about this setup and how professional it is. Then Rory Geller was in, he continued that on. Declan Bonner came in, won a few Ulsters. Things kind of started to slip. standards weren't maintained. Young lads were stepping away from the panel, opting to travel instead of playing with the county. So once Jim was coming back, it's more or less a sense of, oh, listen, actually, I have to be in there because that setup's going to be brilliant. That's how it goes. And then, listen, Dick probably knows it as well as I do from talking to people. There's nothing hugely scientific about what Jim does. His drills are as simple as you'll get. They're the stuff you'd be doing when you're under 12s, but they're done to a very high level. And the skill levels, was it Johnny Wilkinson or the All Blacks used to say world-class basics? That's basically what Donegal do to a very high standard.
How hands-on is he, Kevin? Like, it literally looks like, I was looking at the warm-up the other day and it was like it's, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's the McGuinness show. Like, he has his hands on everything. Is that like the same? I know Gallagher was the coach back then, but Jim is like, it seems to me, he's the manager. He's definitely an influential coach. He's probably the psychologist. There's probably a couple of, like, you know what I mean? It's kind of, that's rare enough nowadays.
He's the press release as well. He does the press release.
He's judge and jury too. We'll not go there.
When McGuinness comes in, it's, listen, and the county board know this, it's his show. What he wants, he gets. And that's one of the terms and conditions of coming in. He's not going to come in to be arguing over bloody silly things or quality over hotels or are we allowed to go away in this. It's basically, if I'm coming in and I want something, it's delivered. In terms of on the pitch, I thought personally himself and Rory Gallagher worked better as a duo because that was kind of shared. And how it used to work is Jim would take a drill, Rory would stand back and observe, then Rory would run his drill, Jim would stand back. So he would get an opportunity to see different things and, they would pull boys up and things. But he runs everything. Listen, he's got a couple of good lads there, like Colin McFadden, he's very good football brain. Young Barrett's in there in my own club, mate, Neil McGee's in there. So he's got a lot of strong lads to lean on for advice and stuff. But at the end of the day, and we all know this when he was coming in, it's the Jim McGuinness show, and however it'll end up, it's Jim's decision that'll be final,
Yeah. Just a quick one, Dick, on Meath. Very disappointing end to what has been an unbelievable season. Took 3 huge scalps along the way in Dublin, Kerry, and then in Galway. But it's almost, a couple of people have said it to me, it's very like Dublin beating Limerick in the hurling. It's like they delivered this big quarter-final performance and it's like there was nothing left and all their cards have been shown for the semi-final, and that's kind of, they shot themselves in the foot. You'd imagine they'd learn a hell of a lot from it, but they got a fair eye-opener to probably not, that's not where they are, it's somewhere in the middle, but they got a bit of an eye-opener to what the elite teams, where they are in this country.
Yeah, and to be fair, I did sort of call that last week and in my column during the week, and not to be talking Meath down, and probably got a bit of flack. And I
don't mean to say I told you so, but I told you so.
No, but I'm not. But and it's certainly not, because I empathise with Meath are now, because that's the route Monaghan had to travel when you're trying to bring yourself up and play with the big boys. You're going to take a few beatings like that, and you don't. Okay, first thing, let's not patronise me by saying, weren't they great? Because that's what I had to listen to for Monaghan. You were great. You never got properly analysed. You never got properly criticised, and actually done you no favours for the next year. All right, so let's not do that. All right, they didn't have enough variation to their play. They have to look back and say some of those big wins, especially against Dublin. Maybe look, they got a bit of momentum with kicking worldly 2-pointers with the wind at their back, and the game went for their direction. You can't rely on that. It's like going to the casino and relying on winning on red every time. Eventually, the casino
I've been that soldier.
Absolutely, yeah. And so that was going to sort of, the longer you go, you're going to get caught out eventually. But at the end of the day, the reality is the progress that they've made, there's no disputing that. The confidence, like someone said to me yesterday, like Meath in terms of the resources and the potential of a county to waking up is more than anybody. So you look at the crowd that was there, that will all feed into the clubs, the cool camps, the underage systems. Now what they have to do is build on that. Right, and not sort of pat themselves in the back. Enjoy the rest of the year. A few boys will get All-Stars and All-Star nominations, take all the accolades. But if they think that they're a top 4 team and come back next year with that attitude, they'll get a rude awakening, because they're not a top 4 team. All right, they got to a semi-final this year. They finished in the middle of Division 2. Their ambition needs to be next year: get promoted, challenge for a Leinster title, and compete in the All-Ireland series again and bring new players in. They need a few different types of players as well. You know, they can't, like, they've got great player in Brian Menton. His body just gave up on him there. You know, they need to find, you know, another Brian Menton. Donald Keogan's the wrong side of 30, superb players. They need to find players, bring them through, build on the momentum that they got from this year, but don't kid themselves that they're there yet. They've a long way to go, as Saturday night showed them. And it was this, I was very, very disappointed that the game went the way it did. And I got the sense, like Kevin, when they didn't get those scores with the wind at their back, that this could be an uncomfortable second half. And you know what? Donegal knew it. Jim McGuinness knew it. They played with that confidence that, you know, we're going to run these boys over eventually here, because if nothing else, bar kicking balls outside the arc. And when they didn't do it in the first half with doing it at their back, they were found wanting a bit. So I got to learn from that and carry that confidence into next year and not take too much from that defeat, because, you know, Donegal were good and at their best. Now, a word of warning for Donegal, right? And this is where they need to be. We talked about after the Tyrone game, if you remember, Mike, that they were left in a bit of a precarious position because they were likely going to have to play an extra game against good opposition to get to where they needed to be. They've been very fortunate in the draw. They got Louth in their preliminary. They got Monaghan. They got 3 Division 2 teams that, yes, pushed them at different times, but the reality was they had them beaten with 15, 20 minutes to go. They were able to pull Murphy off, not expend energy. So they haven't been pushed as hard against good opposition the same way as Kerry have. So there's a question mark there, really.
Recently, I would say.
They haven't. Yeah, but yeah, in terms of like, so I wouldn't be sort of saying because they blew away a Meath team, who are at the end of the day a middle ranking Division 2 team, you know, that doesn't carry the same weight as what Kerry done.
Yeah.
Because in terms of, you can't in terms of the form line and the credit. So Kerry have had 2 much bigger performances against better teams than Donegal have. The only games that Donegal have struggled in was that Tyrone game in Ballybuffet. And they did, because it was brought to the wire. It was brought against a good team playing well, and Donegal weren't just at it. So there's still a big question mark. Not a big question mark. That's the concern, because if you look at the stats as well for Donegal, like their scoring percentage is through the roof in some of these games. That's hard to sustain. Like they were up in 70% against Monaghan. They were again, what was it, 64% against. Like that's their high numbers to try and sustain, and it cost them against Galway last year, if you remember, when Galway sort of pushed them a wee bit, that scoring percentage just came down. So that's what Kerry will be looking at. They're going to be shooting from the old arc, and it's about putting pressure on them and just try to get that scoring percentage down, because they're not going to sort of get the extra points from 2-pointers, and they're not a big goal scoring team either. I know they ran in a few goals against Meath, so that's where they're a wee bit vulnerable, as they were in the first time Jimmy was there, Kevin. Because they're so structured, they're a bit predictable. They're not very good, but still a bit predictable, because of a sort of a set way of playing that if you can counter it and you have the right men in the right positions, you can bring them back a wee bit. And that's just the one thing about looking at Donegal. They were very fortunate, and they were able to mind Murphy to make sure that he's not expending too much energy. He's not picking up injuries. I think he was pulled after, what was it? 45 minutes.
Yeah. McBurty was brilliant. McBurty was brilliant.
Super. But that's more about minding Murphy to make sure that he's at his best, because he knows he's probably going to have him on for 70 minutes against Kerry.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done that successfully against a top team yet this year. So that's the one wee caveat. But again, we're picking holes here, if we're being honest.
Kevin, final word to you. The Tailteann Cup final was obviously the curtain raiser on Saturday. It was a belter of a game, and it was a really good campaign. And I know it's a little bit off Broadway, and maybe there's not as many eyes on it as you'd like. But from a Kildare point of view, when they were beaten narrowly in a Leinster semi-final by Louth, who went on to win it, it can go one of two ways, can't it? And in fairness, I think Kevin Feely actually said that Brian Flanagan didn't really, not that he didn't speak to them, but they didn't have a meeting right after the Leinster semi-final. He actually let them play their first 2 Tailteann Cup games, which they were going to win barring a mishap. And they talked after the second round, and he almost said he let the hangover play out naturally, and then they talked it out and set their goals, and their goal was to win a Tailteann Cup, and they did it. It was tough going, and they were lucky in the wind-up, because that could easily went to extra time, very, very easily. But job done from a Kildare point of view.
Yeah, it was a cracking final. I think that's the big thing with the Tailteann Cup. It's a fantastic competition, because Dick touching it there, like, we have the elite, and then we have the group that are behind. So, like, although Kildare will be really disappointed to lose at Leinster, like your next goal then is, listen, okay, guys, we have to refocus here and go for the next prize available to us. Like realistically, I think that's where Kildare are at the minute. Now, the big question for them, and no more than Meath, they have the resources, they have the pool to really start to climb the ladder if they put the right structures in place. But, you know, I think it was a good approach, maybe taking a week off and not mention what are we going to do, or we're going to go for this, because like we've all been in dressing rooms, you poured your heart into a season and you get beat. All you want to do is go home. You don't want to talk about currently training. You don't want to think about currently training. You don't want to think about the season ahead. You barely want to think about the club season coming. So the fact that they were kind of slowly allowed to rebuild back into it was a smart move, and we've seen the likes of Down do it in the past. I think, you know, if a team gets together and says, right, listen, we're definitely all in here, boys, and this is where we're at. And once you realise that that's where you're at, then it's a fantastic competition, and I think they'll get a real bounce from the victory.
And from a Limerick point of view, got promotion from Division 4, won 2 out of 3 games in Croke Park this year. They've, like I said it before, if you ever saw a manager that you would play for, Jimmy Lee is the man. He literally looks like, and I mean this in the best way possible, it's like that lovable next door neighbour that you'd literally, if he asked you to come over and cut the lawn at 12 o'clock at night, you'd do it for him. Do you know what I mean? He just looks like that, and he's got players to totally buy in, and that hopefully that'll be a big kind of a springboard for them as well. But Kevin, before I let you go, we won't be chatting to you between now and the All-Ireland final. How do you see that going, and who wins it? Does your heart rule your head?
Kerry are raging hot favourites at this point. Listen, I honestly think I was having a conversation yesterday here in the bar with a few customers, and I was just saying,
just give a quick your bar is where it's up in Gweedore, is it?
It's in Gweedore, yeah. It's Chavaki and Gweedore. So listen, obviously Chavaki, the place has gone crazy at the minute, and it's all talk, and obviously they all want to see what you think, how the game will go. And my honest opinion is that this is as 50-50 as you get. I honestly think it can go any way. Both teams are good enough to win it, and I just think it's who's going to get the bounce the ball, and it really is a toss of the coin. That's just being honest.
Okay, perfect. Kevin, great to have you on this week, and Dick, great to have you on as always, and we'll talk to you 2 soon. Cheers, man.
Cheers, guys. See you there.
Cheers, gents. Talk